Hi everyone, Jamie Humphries here for Six String Alliance, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at my new rig. Yes, I have a ToneX rig. I am heading out on tour and I decided to have a new rig built. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the background of the rig, why I decided to go with ToneX, about this exquisite build. We're going to have a listen to some tones as well. And also I'm going to show you something that I discovered with ToneX that I haven't actually seen anyone else do. Maybe someone else out there has done it, but I haven't come across it yet. As well as that, we're also going to be heading out to production rehearsals. I leave tomorrow, so you're going to be coming with me and having a little look around, having a look at the gear, having a look at all of my guitars, and have a look at what goes on at production rehearsals. So not so much playing today. If you're really into nerdy gear guitar videos, then stick around. So let's get to it. So at the tail end of last year, I got asked to go out on tour this fall with a Swedish artist, Peter Johansson. Now, for those of you that follow me on my social media or on YouTube, you may know that I'm a Mesa Boogie artist and I have quite a substantial Boogie rig. I have a big rack and a JP2C. I use a lot of Boogies in the studio, but as well as that, I also like using Friedman and also Engel, have the Steve Morse amp, which I'm very much in love with. But I do have a smaller setup, and I have used smaller setups when I'm out gigging about and attempted to have smaller setups. But I more recently settled on using the Blackstar Amp 2. And I loved that because it was a pedal amp, and I could turn up to a gig with a Boogie cab, have a bit of onstage sound, come out of the direct out. It had all the effects in it and it was great. But the issue that I had with that is that it's not stereo. Now, when it came to this tour is a slightly smaller production. And so there wasn't really the ability to take my bigger rig. And it was also requested if we could have smaller setups that were completely silent. They wanted to have a silent stage, albeit that when I do run my big rig, I run it with 2 notes gear, so I am running it silently, but they wanted to have things that were just pedal board based. I spoke to a very good friend of mine here, Göran Elmqvist, and Göran runs a company called Sound of Silence, and his clients include Opeth. He's been doing the Synergy rigs for them, Dirty Loops, In Flames, Candlemass, Kimo Solo, many other Swedish artists, and he builds a lot of pedal boards and rigs, as well as does a lot of work on studio builds. I got to know Göran a few years ago, and he ultimately ended up building the interface that's on the wall here for me to be able to feed everything from the live room into my control room. And after this tour, he's actually going to be redesigning, rebuilding the studio for me. But he also put the Helix in my big rig. And through that time, we became really good friends. And I spoke to him about the tour and sort of my quest for something. He said, well, let's build you a rig. Let's build you a board. You need to have a board set up that's silent. So I looked at options. We kind of ruled out the amp thing and sort of thought about going with a preamp, thought about going with a Helix. I've got a Helix, but it's all in the rack and it's a rack unit. And again, you'd have cables running on stage if the rack was somewhere. Just wanted everything on the board. Göran said to me, why don't you go ToneX? You use ToneX. You've got a great relationship with IK. Now, I've worked with IK for many years. I hadn't really used ToneX to its full potential, and I'd used it within the studio, mainly for bass and bits of guitar. But then when we did the 78, 79 Brown Sound collection, I got a little bit more into it, and I was like, hold on a minute, this is actually really cool. I started to experiment with the effects and found that the effects were really easy and really usable. So with that, we decided to go with a ToneX rig. And this is the setup that Göran has put together for me. Let's talk a little bit about the layout of the board. The board itself, the pedal board, is a Sound of Silence board. This is one of Göran's own boards. Now, as I mentioned, Göran's company is incredibly cool. He's one of those guys that just understands electronics. He knows what will work with what. He understands about the cabling and, oh, you shouldn't have this there because that's going to create harm. And I'm not very good at that kind of stuff. And I put things together. Oh, I just plug that in there and then there's loads of noise. And so his company, it deserves a shout out. I'm going to put a link to it in the description for those of you, even if you're not based in Sweden. He builds a lot of these really cool boxes and interfaces and things, custom stuff that really suit your requirements. So this is one of his own pedal boards that we've used. He does smaller ones, but we went for the next size up to accommodate what I wanted, the volume pedal and such. So to start off with, we've got the Line 6 wireless, the G50, and I know there's going to be a lot of raised eyebrows about that, but I absolutely swear by those old wirelesses, and even Göran himself was like, it's a great wireless. I stuck with that. So we come from the wireless into the Ernie Ball volume pedal, and that's a tuner volume pedal. We have the EVH wah, and then we have the Tumnus. Now, I wanted to have a drive pedal because I wanted to treat this like almost like my big rig, so that I have a physical drive. And I also thought there was something nice and organic about having a drive before the ToneX. Now, we tested different pedals because I was a little bit worried. As there's a big portion of Brian May in this gig, I'm also going to be using a Red Special, or my Music Man hybrid Red Special that has a treble booster built into it. So we tested a lot of different pedals, and I tried many different things, and I found that having not just a clean boost, having the Tumnus really worked. I find that the Tumnus is just one of those pedals that you put it in front of anything and it sounds great. Now, another thing to consider when using a drive pedal is making sure that you set your input trim correctly. And I've explored a lot of videos to do with this, and having the input trim set too high, I think it comes at like +8 or something, which is really running a lot of input into the amp captures, which I found to be too saturated. So I've settled at having mine at 0, and that way it can accommodate having the boost pedal pushed into it, or a treble booster, or even this guitar, which has a clean boost. And I've got enough headroom as well to clean things up. So we're going into the ToneX pedal. We'll talk about the amp captures and how I'm using that in a moment. And then we're coming out of the ToneX, and we've got this little interface up there, which was built by Göran. And the reason for having that was, first of all, it stops you plugging in and out of the ToneX and maybe ultimately breaking the circuit board that the plugs are attached to, or if someone treads on it. So a little interface like that is a lot more sturdy. We've also got an expression pedal input. I have got an expression pedal set up. I used it on the first gig, which we need to talk about the first gig because it was an absolute disaster. So for the time being, I've shied away from the expression pedal. It was just something else for me to sort of worry about. The other cool thing, if by any chance the wireless system did go down, then Göran's wired a guitar input, and it's almost like a patch bay. As soon as you plug into that, it overrides the wireless system. So you don't have to unplug stuff. Maybe you're getting some interference or something goes wrong. Plug in a guitar cable, plug into the interface, and it will just hardwire you straight into the ToneX. Now, I also do have another ToneX as well. I've got a second pedal, which now that I've got all my sound sorted out, I've backed up the library and put that onto the ToneX. So if there was ever a problem, then you could simply swap that out. I reached out to my friends at Voodoo Lab. I've had a relationship with them for years, as I use all the Voodoo Lab switchers, and they sent me the pedal power 3 plus, I think it is. So all of the power Göran has really managed to get it so that we're not drawing too much power. It is absolutely silent. So if you are looking to build a rig, power is incredibly important. Now, I also wanted to have some kind of switcher for maybe accessing effects and switching presets. So I opted for the Airstep TX. Now, I didn't get on very well with this. I've got an Airstep Ultra. It is the Airstep Ultra, and I love that. And I was really hoping that this would do the job. Now, the problem with this at the moment is the mapping on it for a professional gig. It just is no good. If I hold this is your presets up and down. Okay. If I hold my foot too long, it turns your amp off. It actually turns off your amp capture. Now, on my first gig, I did a festival with this. Oh, yeah, this is going to be great. It was horrendous. Not only were my sounds terrible due to my inexperience of programming or setting up captures for a live performance, but I came out of a particularly tricky passage and I switched presets. I left my foot on the switch too long and it turned off my amp capture, and I had a Brian May guitar with a treble booster blasting a clean DI out of a sound system at a festival. And after that, I had to quickly scramble and I hit a switch and I went to another wrong preset and it was just horrendous. The thing that also with the banks, when you go up the banks, it doesn't go up the bank and then allow you to select the next the preset once you've gone up to the bank. It just selects the equivalent preset that you're on. So if you're on preset like B, I think that is, I don't know if it's 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. I haven't got my glasses on, but say you're on that preset and then you go up a bank, it will select that same preset slot in the next bank straight away. There is a second layer on this. If I, press that, that's the effects layer. But again, one of the buttons here turns off your cab as well as your amp. So I found that a little bit detrimental. Now, I wrote to Xsonic about this because everyone's been singing its praises. Oh, it's amazing. But in a professional gig, it was a bit of a nightmare. So I did write to Xsonic, and in all fairness to them, I told Henning about this, and Henning was the same. So we spoke to them, and I presented them with a map of what I thought was a good map. And basically, they were like, okay, we're going to change the map. We're going to get rid of that. So I don't know what the map is going to be like. They are also coming up with the ability for the Airstep Ultra to work. I was going to swap out the Airstep Ultra, but everything's wired up with this. And I must admit, I did a gig the other night with it and I got on a lot better with it, but I was just very, very cautious about it. So I'm hoping that the update will come out this week in time for me to load it for the tour. So we will see. I don't know whether they're going to use my suggestions. What I wanted to have was A, B, and C instead of preset up and down. You know, if you want to go from that one to that one, you've got to scroll through. It made absolutely no sense. So I ended up still doing a lot of switching on my last gig on the ToneX itself. So, you know, you can access the effects, which is pretty cool. Again, I got in a little bit of a mess with that because of the double touch functions, and you'd hold it and it would change something else. It's got the tap tempo, which is cool. So yeah, that I'm still a little bit unsure about the Airstep TX. We'll see what happens with the update. But as I said, I don't want to speak out of turn with it because the concept is great. And if you're playing at home and stuff, it is great. But on a professional stage, I didn't get on with it at all. It just, being able to turn off your amp capture, why would you want to do that? So let's see what the update yields. Now, something else that's really cool about this rig is that I have the ToneX Cabs. I have a pair of them so I can run the rig in stereo. I've got them set up now. I'm actually using them as a way of being able to DI out of the cabs straight into the wall, the interface and into the Mac in the other room. Otherwise, I'd have to run a pair of DI boxes. The cool thing about the cabs is that you have like a pre and post mode so that you can adjust EQ on the cabs to suit the room and it won't affect the sound coming out of the direct out, or you can flick it so the EQ on the cabinets does affect the outputted sound. As well as that, they're fully programmable. You can have them sort of flat response like monitors, or you can dial in this cab tone to get a little bit more fullness to them. And they're MIDI switchable as well. So you can store presets. You can even run a device without any IRs and have the IRs actually loaded into the cabs. So they are super cool. Now, even though I wear in-ear monitors, I've been using the cabs on gigs. That little bit of weight, my in-ear monitors have ambient ability in them. So I do get to hear my surroundings, and I was able to walk up to the cab and get feedback and hold notes, and it just felt more like a proper rig. Okay, so let's just talk a bit about how I've set up my ToneX. Something that I did early on, I made the mistake of almost treating it like a modeler, and I'd load a capture and then I'd start messing around with the EQ and all of this stuff. The EQ is really like a pre or post EQ. It's not the amp EQ. And what I suddenly decided to do was treat it more like, instead of, I could have this amp and this amp and this amp, which is going to be an absolute nightmare for our production team on the tour, I decided to go, what amps do I know? I know Boogie. So I'm using the official Mesa Boogie ToneX pack predominantly. I'm using a Mark IV for my rhythm sound and a Mark IIC Plus for my lead sound. So there's a little bit of tonal variation, a little bit of extra gain. And the way that I have now got my head around it is to find a capture that I like the sound of, going through the Boogie ones, listening to the Mark IIC Plus, finding some cleans that I like, and trusting the fact that the guys at Boogie and who did the captures, they're pros. They know what they're doing. I don't need to do anything to them. So finding captures that suit what I'm after and doing pretty much nothing to them. I also found that I prefer the amp-only captures. So I would use the amp-only capture and then add an IR. That's something that really changed things for me, albeit that when it came to the Brian May sounds, I'm using the VIR cab, the virtual IR cab within ToneX, and I'm using the Brian May cab that was included in the Brian May package. Now, for some of the clean tones, I am using the complete complex rig, if you like, which is the amp and cab, but it's mainly the Mark IV for my rhythm sounds and the Mark IIC Plus for my lead sounds. I'm using one of the Joe Satriani Fender amps for my lap steel. And also, because we play some Police, I discovered on the Joe Satriani pack that there's a JC 120. So I use that for my Andy Summers-esque sound, which has worked out really nicely. As well as now, I've obviously got the Brian May sounds. And for the Brian May sounds, at first, I have a buddy of mine who deserves a massive shout out, which is Thomas Brunkard. Now, Thomas is a Brian May tone guru, and he's very much into the ToneX ecosystem, and he runs a mini Mac ToneX rig live, and he offers captures of Brian May gear, the treble boosters, the amps, as well as making these superb presets. So basically what I did was I loaded one of Thomas's presets and then just messed with it to suit my guitar and my tastes, and obviously for a live situation. And the sound now, my Brian May sound is absolutely fantastic. So a massive shout out for Thomas as well for helping me with that tone. So there's a link in the description if you want to check out some of his presets. Okay, so I've moved everything around. We've got the board on the floor now. I've got a camera here. Hopefully this picks everything up okay. So we start off, we got the tuner at the front end. As you can see, tuner volume pedal, really cool. The Ernie Ball tuner volume. I'm out of tune. Am I in tune? No, I'm in tune. So you got a nice bright display on there. And the other cool thing, I'm having to stretch to get this on camera and keep myself in a good seated position. You can see I've got like a numbered volume control. So I like to sometimes clean things up very quickly. Instead of using the guitar volume, I will use the volume pedal. So let's push that all the way down. Another thing also I should mention about the sounds, I'm using reverb, but it's probably not even noticeable. I don't like reverb live. I don't know why you would need reverb live, because you're in a venue. And so for the sound guy, when I did a gig the other night, I said, I haven't got any reverb. He was like, thank you. So I've got a little bit of space in there. So the cab is kind of sitting in an environment, but I will get the sound man to put a little bit of something on my in-ears. So let's have a listen. This is the Mark IV. This is my crunch sound. Okay, so pretty straightforward sound. If I go onto a single coil. Something that's very cool about this guitar that was part of the design, or I don't want to sound arrogant, but what I wanted it to do was to have the neck and the bridge pickup like my telly. So if I hit my tone pot, Now it brings in the neck pickup, and I quite like that sometimes if I'm playing on a crunch tone. I can clean it up by introducing that pickup and just dropping back the volume a little bit. It's a bit of a Steve Morse trick, that is, but bringing in a single coil. This is why I love this. It's amazed me how dynamic it's cleaning up when I back down the volume. So that was a real plus point for me. And again, I think that's how I've got it set up with the input trim. We've got the Tumnus there, which will add a little bit of drive and also pushes a little bit of input. I'm trying not to push too much input in because I don't want to clip the front end of the ToneX pedal. You can hear that also with the Tumnus, it sort of tightens the low end. This is with the Airstep, as I said, if I go onto the green bank, that's the effects bank, and you can turn effects on and off. There's all these long presses that you can turn things on and off. Okay, now I've got a lead sound, and for the lead tone, it's the Mark IIC Plus. Okay, so again, it's very dynamic. And I've got a nice delay on there, ping pong delay. And I have my delays set with the sync button in so that I can set to specific note values. And also, if I go there, look, you've got the tap tempo, so I can change the BPM. So that's very cool about the Airstep, the Airstep TX. I have another lead sound on this bank, and this lead sound is, it's got some reverb on it. I don't use reverb, now I've got a reverb one, just in case I want to have something a little bit ambient for that kind of making your guitar sit back a little bit. Let's go up a bank. And now I'm on to exactly the same sounds again, but with a bit of chorus. And I've put a bit of delay on my rhythm sound. So this is kind of my sound that I like. That's kind of my main rhythm sound with a bit of effect on it. I do love myself some chorus. And again, if I drop down the volume on the guitar, and when I bring in the Tumnus, so I can get those 80s hard rock tones. And for the lead sound, if I go up a preset again, we're on the Mark IIC Plus now for the leads. And this is the same lead sound with a little bit more delay and also the chorus as well on the lead. So obviously, we've got the wah-wah as well. It's a little bit tricky to operate the wah-wah around the corner, but you can see, again, the wah-wah there, that's a true bypass wah-wah with the Van Halen wah-wah. This sort of 80s style clean tone, which is the Mark IIC Plus. Actually, I'm using a different IR on that. I've just remembered I'm using a 1x12 Mesa Boogie. I didn't want the cleans to be too sort of thick in the low end. On to the special, the cool thing that I have discovered. Now, all of my Music Man guitars have a Piezo, and I've used the Piezo system for years with the 2 plugs going direct. And on about 3 years ago, I started experimenting with IRs using an IR loader, and the sound was amazing. And there's a video of my rig using a 2-notes unit as an IR loader for the acoustic IRs. Since putting the Helix rack into the rack, I now have a separate signal path for my acoustic IRs, and I have 4 outputs on the back of the rack. Now, with this setup, I'm only using 1 wireless. So I was kind of wondering how I would be able to do the acoustic IR thing. And then I thought, hang on a minute, I've got this blend socket, which you can run with a stereo cable and into a splitter to send the acoustic or the electric to 2 independent sources. Or if you just use a mono jack or mono cable, I've got them obviously as a mono wireless, then you've got either the magnetic or the piezo, or a blend of the 2 from the same output. So you can't separate them, but I didn't really want to. So what I thought to myself was, well, hang on a minute, I can load speaker IRs. I wonder if I can load an acoustic IR. So I turned off my amp capture and loaded an acoustic IR into the cab and used some compression, a mild amount of stereo chorus, and a little bit of room reverb. How cool is that? So I can literally go from my clean So I can now have acoustic IRs and swap between an electric sound and an acoustic sound. Now, I've never seen anyone doing that. Maybe someone else out there has, but literally what you do is you turn off your the amp capture, and just in the cabinet load where it says custom IR, load an acoustic IR. Now, the cool thing is, if you don't have a piezo, you can get IRs for magnetic pickups. And I even experimented with that as well and got a pretty good result. It works best with the piezo. Now, there's another thing that I did, which is also very cool. I got to play a little bit of mandolin. We're doing Maggie May. And I said, oh, it'd be cool. I've got this electric mandolin. I can use that at the end of the song. And I took it in to be set up. And I said to my friend who set the guitars up here, my friend Daniel at Guitar Geeks in Stockholm, I said, the neck, the action's terrible. When he turned it around and said, yeah, because the neck snapped off. So I thought to myself, do I want to buy another mandolin for like this tiny little piece? And so I thought, well, maybe if it works with acoustic IRs, maybe a mandolin IR would work. So I went on the same website and I bought a mandolin IR. They're meant for mandolins, but it was a Fishman bridge. This is a Fishman bridge. So now I have... Sounds really cool, actually, if you play 2 strings at once. So I can play that little melody at the end of Maggie May now and have a mandolin sound. So again, it's just another application and another way of utilizing ToneX. Okay, so now we're on to my next set of sounds, and this is the set of sounds for Act 2. And Act 2 of this show is all Queen. As I said, Peter was Galileo in We Will Rock You London, and he's done his own show, Champions of Rock. I've had a long association with the Queen Productions. I was a sub on We Will Rock You London for many years. I was principal in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Denmark. I did 2 German tours with We Will Rock You. And I also spent some time working with Brian as well. I was in a solo band with him with Kerry Ellis, and also I did one gig with Queen And also, I'm the only guitar player to have ever performed on We Will Rock You 2. Yes, there was a second We Will Rock You written, and I was hired by Brian to do the workshops and the initial performances for that. Sadly, that show didn't come to pass. Now, when I do Queen stuff outside of We Will Rock You, I go for an approximation of the tone. You know, I've been getting a semi-close tone using Amped 2, and I've used other products and other things to try and get a Brian sound. I've even got a ballpark tone from my Boogie with a Vox IR. You'll notice I'm not playing a Red Special. I do have a few Red Specials. My favourite Red Special is the Guild, and I have one of those with the Damasios in. And basically, I wanted to be able to have a Music Man guitar that had the guts of a Red Special in. So I had this older single coil Music Man, and Nigel Knight and Knight Audio, who builds Brian's treble boosters and all these electronic stuffs, converted this guitar. Andrew Guyton of Guyton Guitars. Brian plays Guyton specials. He did the finishing job to match the other guitar for me. But basically, the styling of this guitar was made to look like a cross between a Music Man Axis and a Red Special. Damasio wound me a set of the Brian May pickups from the 80s Guild as well. And I can have this as a regular Music Man, or it's got a series parallel switch and an onboard treble booster. My favourite Brian tone, although I love the early tone, it's phenomenal. I do like that 80s and 90s tone with the chorus. So that was the sound I was going for. Now, as I mentioned, my friend Thomas, who is very much a tonal cork sniffer when it comes to the Brian May thing, much more than I am. I don't profess to be, by the way. He helped me initially. He gave me some of his captures. He's made some great captures of amps, and I was experimenting with Vox IRs, and I made this tone in my studio, and I thought it was great. And I went out and did this first gig, a festival with my Queen band, as I said, the disastrous one, and the guitar sound was dreadful. So when I came back, and as I've said, I started looking at some of Thomas's tone presets, and we started chatting, and eventually I found one preset that I really liked that was an 80s preset, and then just started working with that preset to work with my guitar and my tastes. As I said, it's an approximation. So basically what we're using is the VIR cab. So it's that modelled Brian May cab from Amplitude 5. You can move the mics around. The VIR section of ToneX is very powerful, and that worked so much better with the with the capture than an IR. I got a much more authentic. It's like this very round, rich mid-range. The room reverb, again, just a very small reverb that you can barely notice. And then I've got a chorus on there. I have got variations of this same tone with a phaser and without effect as well. And also with a delay sort of mimicking the wet, dry, wet. And one with a lot of reverb for when I do These Are the Days of Our Lives. So anyway, let's have a listen. Treble booster on the guitar. And there it is. It's an approximation, but the thing that really freaks me out about it is the fact how well it cleans up. If I turn the guitar volume all the way up, as I start to back it down, it gets that glassy sound. I am using a sixpence. That really helps with the sound. So if I go into the out of phase sound, the neck pickup out of phase, and take out the bridge pickup, it gets that. It's got all of the harmonic overtones. it's an approximation of the sound. Now, I have that same sound again, but with a delay, and the delay is meant to imitate that the center dry and then the right and the left side. So with that, I've got that more set for my tastes. So if I'm playing like a... Now, the effects are absolutely fantastic on ToneX. They're so simple. And this really has answered my prayers, because I have one box with great sounding captures, all the flexibility with either using the tone capture speakers or the VIR cab, or being able to load IRs. I can even load acoustic IRs in this. And then I have a basic effects suite that I can use pre or post. Got a compressor on there, as I said, noise gate. There is an EQ. Don't mistake the EQ on ToneX for being the amp EQ. It's more of a post EQ or a pre EQ, and it can be it's quite powerful. I wish that there was like a high pass filter and like a high cut. I think that would be something really good to add, just a shelf off the low end and the high end. And you've got multiple different reverbs, there's spring reverbs, there's a plate, and there's a room. It would be nice if there was a hall reverb in there as well, maybe. And with the modulation, I would love there to be a pitch detune, as I kind of prefer that a little bit to chorusing. And with the delay is pretty cool. It's just a digital delay or a tape delay. I've used the tape delay on the older the sort of more 70s inspired Brian May lead tones. Again, these are approximations. And to be honest with you, I found a tone that works and use that for all of it. I've got another lead sound here, which is for when we do Days of Our Lives, which is a lot more reverb. I'm thinking about getting the expression pedal rigged up for this so I can blend the delays a little bit more. And there's a reverb to make it sound a little bit set back. So... The delay is quite heavy there. I'm thinking, again, testing this. When I played it on its own, the delay was wasn't quite intense enough. So I pushed it up a bit. But I think that one could maybe use the expression pedal. But again, just being able to turn the volume down and sort of reference those very gentle tones that Brian gets. I've also got a tone with a phaser on it as well, for those... Without I put the phaser at the front end. As I said, this is approximations of the sounds, but I think that, you know, generally that sound, it's such a difficult tone to get. And I'm amazed at how well with ToneX, it's got that mid-range. But it's also got that glassy quality to it as well. So... Okay, everyone, we are here now at production rehearsals, and it's a very, very sunny day. It's a little bit cold, actually. Let's go inside and check it out. So here's the board. This is my little area at the moment. So we have the lap steel there, which I play on 2 songs. Then we have the board here. They're just testing the lights, just as I go to look at my board. There's the board, and we have this little radial little talkback button there, which I can communicate with the sound man, the monitor guy actually, just during performance if I need my mix adjusted. Just coming directly out of the little interface into a stereo DI box, and then off to the monitor world over here. There's the other guitar player's gear. So then we have monitor world here. This is the monitor desk. Check that out. So that's so that we can hear everything going on when we're playing and communicate if we need anything changing. And then out here, this is a really cool rehearsal space actually, just outside well, it is still Stockholm, but just out. It's got the rigging all built in to the ceiling, so they can just hang all the lighting rig and do the stage sets, so we can rehearse the whole show here before going out on the tour. So today is the final day of the rehearsal. So then in terms of the PA, obviously the PA will be a much bigger, but our sound man, Andreas, who does all the production, he just has a couple of speakers on each side. I'm guessing some bins and tops, and that enables him to program and test everything. So here is the desk. This is our desk that we take out on tour. So everything's programmed. Okay everyone, we're now at a gig. I was going to show you around a gig the other day, but the first gig was a bit awkward. There was a lot going on. So this is the second gig, and let's just spin this round, doing this on my own, so forgive me. This is the venue. We've just played one show here actually. The response in this city where we are in Sweden was very good, so we booked another show. So yeah, there you go. They're just testing lights and stuff. It's a bit bright. Reason why I thought I'd do this is because I shot some footage on the guitars the other day in rehearsal and messed up the mic. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of a look. There's my board, and just 2 outputs into the radial stereo DI box. We got another radial thing there, which is like a talkback mic. I can click that and talk to the monitor engineer who is over that side of the stage, and I can talk to him without interfering with the rest of the band or anything. So there we have the stage set. Hopefully, there we go, all the gear, monitor world, and then round here is the where the backline technician is, who is looking after the guitars and everything. There's the lap steel. The lap steel I play at 2 points throughout the whole concert. I play it in the first act and the second act, and for that I just bring that out and I plug that into the little interface box, the Sound of Silence interface box, and when you plug in, it overrides the wireless, so I can still have my guitars on the stands with the wireless, and yeah, but I don't have to switch anything off. I can just plug the cable straight in. So that's what we do. Let's go into backline world, and it's where the backline technician is. This is the singer of the show, Peter. That's his, is that a quad cortex? Yeah, it is. That shows how much I know. That's his quad cortex. Pelle, the other guitarist, fantastic guitar player over the other side of the stage. He's using a Helix. Let's have a look at the guitars. So I'm using 5 guitars on this tour. I'm only really using 3 to be honest with you, there's a couple of backups. Let's see if I can do this, how successfully I can do this on my own. Let's just move that around there. So there we have guitar number one. That's, well, when I say guitar number one, it's the first one out the rack. That's not my main guitar. I just have that guitar in E flat for a song, and I'm only using it for the Piezo because I have to do both an acoustic part and a mandolin part. So that's obviously a Music Man Axis Super Sport. I've had that guitar for very many years. Damasio DLX Plus in the bridge, and then just the Music Man P90. But like I said, I'm only using that for the Piezo. Now we have my main guitar here. This is my the custom Axis Super Sport that I play a lot, and this is the one that I was using in the studio when we were looking at the gear. Damasio injector pickups, the single coils, and then the Damasio Fast Track 1. We've also got Piezo on that. We have a boost on the volume control. It's like a push boost, like so. And then we have we can push the tone control, and that'll engage the neck pickup. So you can have bridge and neck or all three on. Just spinning that one round. We have the, there we go. You can see it now. We've got the Engel hardtailer in there as well. So that's the old Lick Library Music Man guitar that many of you might have seen if you've got Lick Library products. I've been playing that guitar for 26 years, 25 years. Seen a lot of shows. It's got a lot of wear on the back from my days of wearing a big belt and playing sweaty clubs. That's also got an Engel hardtailer in it. So that's not really a backup. I sometimes just choose to use that guitar, but mainly I stay on the on this Super Sport. You notice that I've got these little markers. I'm getting older. And so a company called Fretlook made me some nice little fret markers for the top because I didn't want to wear glasses on stage. And my close-up vision isn't as good as it used to be when I was a younger man. So I have those. I haven't put them on all of the guitars yet, but I have them on most of them. For the second act, we do a lot of Queen. So for that, I'm mainly using this Axis Sport from the 90s that I had converted by Nigel Knight. Nigel Knight does a lot of stuff for Brian May, builds the treble boosters, lots of his electronics. So Nigel designed the guitar, or laid the guitar out in a way. Let's try and see it a bit better. Yeah, so he laid this guitar out to sort of resemble a Red Special. So he remade the scratch plate and put the selector switches and the phase. And then we got a series parallel on a push-pull, and we've got an onboard Cat treble booster. The pickups on this, I was very fortunate enough to have Damasio wind me a set of the original 80s BHM Brian Harold May pickups that they put in the Guild. So that tends to be my main Brian May inspired guitar, mainly because I like to play the Axis. And then I have a backup guitar, and I've just bought out the Guild replica. So the Guild replica has original 80s pickups. It has a Kayla, and then obviously the switches. And then we have a Cat treble booster, strap treble booster. Okay, so there you have it. There are my tones and my ToneX rig. A massive shout out to IK Multimedia, to Yerdan at Sound of Silence, to Thomas as well for his help with the presets, and also Voodoo Lab. You know, this is an ongoing journey, and I'm sure that I'm going to make a lot more tweaks to it as things go on. But anyway, I really hope that you've enjoyed checking out the ToneX rig, having a look around at the gear at the production rehearsals, and having a listen to my tones. I know my tones are probably a little bit boring because I just use captures of the amps that I like to use. But also, you know, that acoustic thing with the Piezo, I think that's quite interesting as well. Anyway, that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you don't already, please subscribe, and I'll see you very soon.